Hello and welcome back to the Scotti-BYTE channel, and this is Scott. So today we want to talk about secure shell or SSH access from Windows. So secure shell or SSH is a required protocol to manage remote Linux servers. So on the channel all the time I talk about SSHing to a particular LXD instance, virtual machine, going out to set up Docker, all those sorts of things. Well, if your default system happens to be Linux, that's easy. But if your default desktop is Windows, then you need a couple of different tools that you have available to you. So Windows has three options to provide SSH access. The first is a program called Windows Putty, and it's an SSH client. And the advantage to Windows Putty is that it stores many different profiles for different systems that you want to connect to. And it's a desktop application that's installable in Windows. And then secondly, Windows has a built-in SSH client, which is an optional feature, and we're going to learn how to turn that on. And all that does is give you an SSH command at the Windows command shell. And then finally, there's a very powerful capability called Windows Subsystem for Linux, or WSL2, because it's in its second version. And this is a really powerful capability that actually installs a virtual Linux inside of your Windows operating system. And it requires either Windows 10 or Windows 11. It also requires a processor that has virtualization capability, and that virtualization is turned on in your BIOS. And then all three options provide a command line SSH client to connect to the Linux instances on your network. So WSL2 provides a full Ubuntu instance by default, in which you can also install applications. So let's go take a look at all three of these options. If you've not yet installed the new Windows Package Installer, then click on the Start button, go to Microsoft Store, and when you get there, type in App Installer, and you want to install the App Installer application, which gives you the new Windows Package Manager. Now that the new Package Manager is installed, I'm going to do a Windows R to bring up the run prompt, type in CMD, do an OK, and once that comes up, I'm going to do a winget install putty.putty, and this will install the Putty application. I say yes, I really want to install it. It's downloading the package. I answer yes, I want to install, and Putty is installed. Now that Putty's installed, I can click the Start button. I can type in Putty, and then you can type in the host name of a system you want to go to. So in my particular case, 172.16.1.58. Accept the connection. In this case, I'm going to log in as admin, and the password and there I'm logged in. So the main advantage of Putty is that inside the Putty program you can store many different profiles to connect to various SSH terminals. But did you know that Windows actually has a built-in SSH client? In order to go to it, we can click on Start, we can click on Settings. Once Settings opens, we can go to Apps and Optional Features, And if you scroll down here on SSH client, you can install the SSH client. In the case of this system, it's already installed. On your system, it may not be. So if we exit the settings screen, and then we bring up a terminal again, we can do an SSH over to admin at 172.16.1.58, and here you can see it asks me to accept the fingerprint. I type in the password, and I'm connected to that system. Probably the best way of all to get yourself utilities to be able to talk to Linux systems would be to install WSL2 for Windows, and that stands for Windows Subsystem for Linux version 2. If we click on the Start button and we search for PowerShell, and we right-click on PowerShell and we say Run as Administrator, once you get the PowerShell prompt, you can do a WSL -- install, and this will install the Windows Subsystem for Linux virtual machine platform. Once WSL2 has completed its installation, we're going to do a shutdown /s, and it will say you're about to be signed out, and the system will reboot. Now, Ubuntu is installing. It installs the Linux kernel, and then it installs an Ubuntu installation. You provided a username, and it will also ask you for a password. And then it gives you a prompt. And I like to go ahead and right-click on the taskbar and pin to taskbar so that I can easily bring up my WSL2 prompt. So this works just like a Linux prompt because that's exactly what it is. So I can do a sudo apt update. And I can do a sudo apt upgrade. Now that WSL2 is installed, we can install other programs. For example, we can do a sudo apt install net-tools. And we can do an ifconfig. And we can see that this node has the address 192.168.31.44. So in summary, we looked at 3 options to provide SSH access to Windows users to manage their Linux instances in their home labs. Putty is a convenient Windows application that allows you to store many SSH profiles for your various systems. And the built-in Windows SSH client is an easy-to-use command line tool that works from the command shell. WSL2 is a powerful virtual Linux OS that can be embedded inside of Windows 10 or Windows 11 if your CPU supports virtualization and virtualization is turned on in your BIOS. Anyway, that's it for today. Please subscribe and like to the channel and hit that notification bell, and we'll see you next time.